Michigan, and I was working at the Michigan Insurance Bureau, and that was a full-time job for me at that time. And I was going to school, working on my MBA at night. And while I was in the Michigan Insurance Bureau, there was a legal department uh, that did with the licensing and regulation. And so I became friends with a number of the lawyers there. And so you would always go out and eat lunch and so forth. And then that's when I began to interact pretty directly with lawyers. And I thought that might be an interesting path at that time. Because really, I was looking just at business, BBA, MBA, and that was it. I hadn't considered law at all until I started reacting with the lawyers at the Michigan Insurance Bureau.
And Luther, what were you doing at the Michigan Insurance Bureau exactly?
A financial analyst. Uh, the insurance industry is very highly regulated, and they need to. All the insurance companies are licensed to practice writing insurance in Michigan have to submit quarterly statements and annual statements. And what they do here is there are a number of liquidity tests that uh, the the bureau would conduct on all of these insurance companies to make sure they weren't in any kind of financial trouble. Because with the state of Michigan, what they want to do is make sure that if you purchase life insurance or if you purchase property and casualty insurance, if there's some type of catastrophe, that you can know that the insurance company is solvent enough to pay. So, for example, if there was an earthquake in Southern California and just level everything, or a hurricane comes through, like Hurricane Katrina comes through and wipes out a lot of businesses. Well, that's very devastating to a lot of insurance companies. And so the states that write insurance, let's say in Louisiana and Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, you have to make sure that those companies are solvent enough to pay those claims. And so that's what that branch, that's what I did. That's the department that I worked in.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And so how did you pivot exactly from insurance to law? You told us that you went to lunch with
Right,
these lawyers and,
right.
when did you make up your mind that I'm really going to go full bore?
Well, okay. Now the lawyers that were in the insurance bureau were administrative law judges. So
Oh, I see.
they conducted, they were conducting their own hearing docket. So they were administrative hearings, not quite like the hearings that you have in regular circuit court. But at that time, for somebody who wasn't well versed in law, it was court to me, and so I just
And
sat
tell
down.
me, what's the difference between what we call an ALJ,
Okay.
an administrative law judge, so that the listeners and the viewers can understand?
Okay. Well, the state of Michigan, the Michigan Insurance Bureau at that time, firstly, was a subdivision of commerce, and then it moved over to licensing and regulation. And within that department, there's a licensing department. Like, let's say, for instance, you're underwriter, you want to write insurance, or your insurance company, and you want to write insurance in the state of Michigan. This is like the administrative level before you would go to circuit court. In order for anyone to litigate anything, you would have to go through the administrative stages first. You can't just jump into a civil litigation. So
To
it would be,
exhaust all the remedies, right?
yeah, it would, yes, these are administrative. It's much like it would be the same as a workers' compensation.
Okay.
So it would be set up like that, sure. Or disability, Social Security disability. You would have administrative hearings before you would go very far. So those will be the administrative aspects of stuff.
Interesting. Interesting. And so you have had a long career as an attorney, and
Mhm.
I practiced in the juvenile court, and I
Yeah.
also had a background in insurance as an insurance defense attorney.
Mhm.
But what fascinates me about your career is this juvenile law aspect. There's a lot that's been going on, as you know, in
Okay.
terms of changes in juvenile justice. And now you're the president of the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar Association. There's so much going on in Michigan. Michigan at one time, as you know, was rated toward the bottom in terms of providing quality um, and competent, quality and competent level of service to indigent clients. Uh, Now that's all changed with this MIDC, Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, and the neighborhood, what's it called? NDS, Neighborhood Legal Defense Services.
Yeah, neighborhood.
What's your take on that? What's your
Yeah,
take on that?
well, that's interesting, and it's kind of a tough position that criminal defense lawyers, especially public defenders, are placed in, because we are funded through taxes. All right, so everything that's going to fund the public defender or the neighborhood defender service, all that comes from tax dollars. And so everyone understands that when you go to court and there's a defendant who's in front of court, who's in court, is entitled constitutionally to a right to competent counsel. But who's going to pay for it? And see, you're putting a
Right.
position, the public will pay for police, they will pay for prosecutors, and they will pay for prisons and those things. But they don't want to pay to protect the defendant because
Why
that's,
not? Why not? When
well,
it's built on the Constitution and the protection of civil liberties and our civil rights.
well, the thing is, that's not the way the public is going to look at it. If a person is in a high crime neighborhood, been a victim of crime, it's going to be the situation. Why are you helping the person who's out here terrorizing and traumatizing a neighborhood, and help those guys out when that money would be better spent with hiring more police?
Right. And
And
I
they
know, and
feel
Luther,
that way
oh,
until they're
oh,
in the defendant's seat, right, Robyn?
Well,
well,
the thing
yeah,
is, what has to happen here is, I think that the government has to stand up, and the legal community has to stand up and say, no, no, look, this is the way. These are the laws. These are the rights people have. And as a citizen of the state of Michigan, United States of America, this is what the taxation is all about. This is what you have to pay for. Just like if somebody wanted to protest the country from, you know, developing more nuclear weapons, or increasing the army, or increasing the air force. No, we don't need another nuclear submarine. Those kind of things. It's the same thing. Strong military, though that is funded by taxpayer dollars. And so, this is where someone, the political branch, has to step forward and say, well, no, this is something that is a cost of freedom. This is just a cost of a free society. And so nobody's going to want to fund this, but this is a cost that has to be sustained, and it needs to be done in a correct way. See, nobody wants to have the criminal justice system become a farce, and I think that sometimes that's kind of the level that it falls down to when it's not funded properly. You only have an attorney in name only, because with business, I always have the saying that you get what you pay for, and if you're
right.
not pay,
And
if
Luther,
you're
so what motivated you? I know you've had a background as a referee in the juvenile court,
right,
where you're encountering parents and children, and then now you're a criminal defense attorney. You and I both do criminal appointed cases and retained cases. I used to do like some of the higher tier, like you, but now I do tier 4. But I know you're very much in the trenches, like attorney Lillian Diallo, Gabi Silver, and
yeah,
you're doing murder and rape cases. And yes, there
right,
has been some more funding that has come the way for NDS and for the private attorneys, which handle the highest majority of the cases. But there's still, there are some improvements that have been coming in, but there still are some things that changes that need to be made. And what motivates you to still stay doing? Because I've done murder and rape cases. Those are
okay.
can be very difficult cases. And if you're not getting paid a lot of money to do it,
Mm.
what motivated you to go into criminal defense, and what motivates you to stay? I mean, because you've had a long history. I think, has it been 33 years you've been an attorney, or how long have
Yes,
you?
well, I've been a lawyer since 1986, and I've been doing criminal defense since 1988.
Okay,
So about 35 years.
okay. But
And
what
Luther, don't
motivates you
you
to
have
stay?
a brother, a sibling who
Well, I
is
have
also?
I have a twin brother who's also in private practice, William Glenn, and I have a sister, Christy Glenn. Uh, we had a practice together, about 10, 12 years ago, but Christy's in Washington, D.C. now in private practice. But yeah, they're three lawyers.
So
Uh,
law runs in your family's DNA.
well, we're first generation lawyers, so just us three siblings. So it's not like we're following anyone's footsteps, but
Well, shout out to your siblings and especially William, because he's been very good with giving, when I have needed help with coverage, and I know he does criminal defense as well.
Mm.
So, but as we've been talking about this, and you talked about kind of like the public's perception of criminal defense, what motivated you to still stay and do criminal defense? I know my father, Robert McCoy, he started out, he did some criminal appointed, and then now he does personal injury, wrongful death. He pulled away from that. So what motivated you to stay? And I know you also you're active with your fraternity, the Sigmas.
Right.
You do a lot of community work with children. And there's been activism that's been going on with COVID and with doing motions for compassionate release for clients that are in the jails and the prisons. So what motivated you to get into this area? And then what's motivated you to stay?
I like doing what I do. So I understand it's a career, and one of the pieces of advice that I would give any lawyer is to find an area of law that you enjoy doing and build a career in that area. And it seems kind of strange because that is not what I went to college for. I saw myself, in New York or Washington, D.C. in some corner office and doing a bunch of paperwork. I didn't see myself in a courtroom doing any kind of criminal defense work. That wasn't what I had in mind at all. But
what was the catalyst? What made you change? What, clicked on that light switch? Was there something that inspired you?
yeah, well, what happened was when I left Ford Motor Company, and that's when I decided to go into private practice with my brother and my sister, and it was just going out and trying to drum up some business. And so I did a lot of assignment work, and I even worked with Bob Gold at the the Misdemeanor Defender's Office. I worked with him
Oh, I
for
worked
a
with
couple
Bob
of
at
years. Yeah,
Michigan Children's Law Center. So shout
right.
out to Bob Gold. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
and
Robert Gold. Yeah, I call him Robert. Yes. Okay, great. Yeah.
and so that's where I pretty much got all of my beginning trial experience doing those misdemeanor things, and so from there it was just a natural progression, and it was just something I like doing. And I don't know what it is, but it's just I like doing trial work. And
And
That's
then
so
fascinating.
you worked as a referee at the juvenile court. How long
right.
did you do that? And how did you get involved with doing that?
Okay, I was a visiting referee. I wasn't a regular referee, so I was a visiting referee, and what that was if a referee went on vacation or was sick or was unavailable, they would bring in a visiting referee, myself and a couple other people, to do their dockets, or they would have a special docket for some reason, and they would bring in visiting referees to come in and do that. And the way that I got the position is still kind of interesting because what I got an invitation from the presiding judge, Judge Francis Pitts,
Oh,
and she invited me in for an interview. I interviewed, and right after the interview, she offered me the job right on the spot, and I accepted. And there you have it.
that's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
I wish you were still a visiting referee. I think that's a great concept. I practice there all the time, and
Mm.
we could benefit from your
Well,
expertise and insights.
yeah.
And
Well,
I know that with COVID that Lillian, Gabi, you
mm,
yourself have been working expeditiously. I mean, I really salute you as far, I see that you've made sure that we've been determined to be frontline essential workers, able to get our shots. I'm not seeing that necessarily in the other, juvenile. I mean, Tracey can speak more to juvenile or family law or the other courts. I'm not seeing we have our Facebook page, and
mm,
I see that you guys, the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar is really out there in the trenches. There's some activism that we'll want you to talk about too, and just spearheading a lot of activities. Beth Morrow as well. There's Wendy Barnwell you have attorneys that are in the trenches that are really making things happen. And so I definitely applaud you on that, because as I said, I don't see it I don't see it in other spaces. So what
Well,
makes you—
Robyn, just to update you
Okay.
on what's going on at Lincoln Hall of Justice, and of course you as well, Luther Glenn, just so that you know, I have to say there has not been a lot of communication about where the court stands. Now, you know that there was talk from our chief judge in Wayne County, Judge Timothy Kinney, that there may be bench trials starting as soon as this month and jury trials starting as early as next month. Now, in the juvenile court, there is a schedule. It hasn't been published, but the judges and referees at Lincoln Hall of Justice, where the juvenile court sits in Wayne County in Detroit, they are going to start back next month. There will be one judge courtroom operating and one referee courtroom. And I don't know if the separate preliminary hearings courtroom will be going as well, but we do know one judge, one referee, one case, and that is to reduce the number of people who are actually physically in the courthouse. And they have installed the plexiglass. And I don't know if anybody is going to be at the door checking temperatures and checking for health passports in terms of whether people have received their vaccine or not. But I know a lot of lawyers have been scrambling at the juvenile court to try to get a vaccine. Some of them don't have the age. And I know, Robyn, you and I have spoken off the record about what's happening in Wayne County, where lawyers can just call that number to get an appointment at the TCF Center to get a shot. And some of the lawyers have been doing that, but it's hit or miss for some of them.
Well,
And Luther, can you speak more to that about dealing with, again, you've talked about being a criminal defense attorney, being a referee in the juvenile court, but being an attorney during COVID?
right. Well, okay. Now, with respect to the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar Association, the person that spearheads the response and for the Bar Association to get COVID vaccines is Lillian Diallo.
Shout
And
out to
so,
Lillian.
no, yeah, it's no. I'm going to make sure that I take none of the credit. That's all for Lillian and Gabi Silver. Those are the two people that work tirelessly to make sure that the Criminal Defense Bar Association gets its fair place at the table. See, everyone thinks about, first of all, the jurors, or they think
Right.
about the police officers, and they think about the prosecutors, and they think
Right.
about the court staff, right? And it seems like everybody just skips over the defense attorneys, and so
Right. Shout out to Gabi too. Yeah, that's the thing. I've been doing this. This is going into November to be 20 years. I've been a criminal defense attorney. Yes, I've wanted to be it. I'm still doing it. I do family, I do neglect and education, but I still do criminal. But we are treated oftentimes like second-class citizens. We have to go through security when we go in the buildings. The prosecutors don't.
Mhm.
And but
And Robyn, I got to jump in here. You know why we're treated like second-class citizens? Is because the clients that we represent are more often than not treated like second and third-class citizens. And that's why we have to stand up and advocate for our clients in the courtrooms. And I agree with you, Luther Glenn, outside of the courtroom as well.
Well, it's no different than being in a burning building or a sinking ship. Everybody wants to get on the life raft. Everybody wants to get out of the building first, and so it's a take care of yourself first kind of mentality right now. And that's just an instinct. That's a survival instinct. So I really can't blame anybody for that. When these vaccines come out, it's going to be the people that can get to the front of the line by whatever means they want to put in place. So
But Luther,
nothing.
what about policy and leadership?
uh,
If we are performing an essential service as essential workers, we are essential workers because, we're fighting for civil rights, for our
right,
clients' civil liberties, for their constitutional rights.
right.
I think that it should go beyond a Hunger Games approach to getting the vaccine.
Well,
right.
this is why I think that some of the projections that the court is going to open up within a month or so are pretty optimistic. Because I just don't see enough people being vaccinated by that time in order to open up safely. Even though at Frank Murphy, they'll have a couple of courtrooms down in the basement and maybe just one or so courtrooms over at the Lincoln Hall and so forth. Uh, that's simply more challenging than I think people realize. And I was one of the last lawyers. I think I was the last lawyer that actually did a jury trial in Frank Murphy one during the COVID. Uh,
Well,
when they had opened it up, they did a couple of jury trials and then they shut it back down because COVID was spreading so fast. So I kind of had some a case experience of trying to conduct
Luther,
a
who
jury trial.
presided over that trial, that last trial?
Judge Kevin Cox.
Interesting. Okay.
Was that in March? Because I know it was like Friday the 13th, March 13th. That's
No.
around the time that everything started shutting down.
No, that's when things shut down initially.
Wow.
The trial that I had was in October. It started the first week in October. That's when they were trying to open
Oh,
the
you
court
when they
back up.
tried to open up again.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and then so I recently in the last couple weeks, I have like last week and then this week I had a live exam. I was at 36th district and then I was in Hamtramck. And even, I have gotten my first shot and I've got to get my second shot. How are you? And I see some defense attorneys are going in when the clients are requesting the live exam. Are you doing that now? Or I know some
Yeah.
are waiting.
No, I've done live exams. Matter of fact, I was in 36th District Court on a live exam yesterday.
Right. And
So,
what it just seems to me from the beginning up until now, it's kind of like trial by error. Some of the courts are opening, then people get sick or people die, and then they have to close. They might close the whole building, or they might now it seems like they're closing down certain courtrooms. Like if there's exposure, like can you speak to that issue?
well, they only allow maybe I think at most 10 people in the courtroom at one time during a hearing, and that includes the judge, the defendants, the security, uh, clerks, and so forth. So there are not a lot of people in the courtroom. Everything is sanitized in between cases, and they spray everything down. People are checked before they come into 36th District Court. Now, not a lot of there recently. There haven't been a lot of people in the courtroom. So I think if I were to try to say or give some kind of impact on what the court is doing to do these kind of hearings, I think they're doing about as much as they can uh, to hold a hearing. Everyone is socially distanced. Everyone is wearing masks. So I can't really criticize the court for what they're doing. So and the hearings that they're doing, these are the people that are in custody. All right, people who are out of custody, they're getting preliminary exam dates 4-5 months from now.
Right. I have a number of cases like that.
Yeah, and so due process requires that people have a speedy hearing, and so you're put in a position of either you're going to grant people bail, and they have to wait on their hearing, or you got to figure out some way to speed up the legal process, and that's going to be a real challenge. And I
Right.
think
And
that
I see some courts now are doing Zoom exams. I'm sorry, I interrupted. What were you saying?
no, it's and well, that's the roadblock in all of this is uh, any kind of evidentiary hearing by Zoom. Whether that is preliminary examination, a motion to suppress, a motion to quash, et cetera. And certainly a jury trial. There's no way I can see that someone can effectively do a criminal jury trial by Zoom. That's just not possible.
Mm,
I had
Luther,
yeah,
I just got to jump in right quick
right.
because there was a court in Texas that conducted a full trial, jury trial, but it was a civil matter. And I thought it was interesting because they actually had two judges. There was one judge to actually preside over the proceeding and another judge to basically facilitate the jurors in the jury box. But that was a civil matter. Criminal matters are completely different.
Right.
Could you expound on that for the viewers and the listeners?
Well, a defendant has a constitutional right to face person to person, eye to eye, their accusers in court. And anyone that's going to testify against an individual in a criminal setting has the constitutional right to sit in the courtroom across from that witness and have that witness testify in front of them, in front of their face, not behind some screen, not filtered through some TV camera. No, that's not the Constitution. You have to go in front of the accused and testify. He has a right to look the person right in the eye while they're testifying against him. That's what the Constitution says, and that cannot be accomplished via Zoom.
Right. And then I have seen some of the district courts, like Hamtramck and then in Detroit, where they are saying when we have a Zoom exam, they're giving an instruction, because Tracey and I had talked about this concern at the beginning. Like when you have a Zoom exam, they say, okay, this is a case. Anybody who's going to be a party should not be watching on Zoom. But it's like, it's really hard to imagine how would they make sure that people are not watching, if there's one officer that's a witness and the other officer is not somewhere watching it in Zoom. I mean, the only thing I can think they would do is if they have them in a different room, somebody's babysitting the witnesses to make sure that they're not watching the testimony, so they don't tailor their testimony to what's being said on Zoom.
Well, that witness sequestration is always going to be an issue. See, this was an issue even before you had COVID. Just because you sequester someone physically in a district courtroom, everybody gets a printed out copy of the preliminary exam transcript, and people show it to whomever they want to show it to. So you have the ability to read whatever questions they were asked and whatever their responses were. So it's not a situation where they're not in the courtroom live and they won't have any idea of what someone testified to. That's not realistic at all. That's very naive to think that an attorney or anyone else would not let a individual read what a witness said at a preliminary examination or an evidentiary hearing. That's not realistic at all. So I think that that's you enter that order so that if someone admits that they listened or they talked about testimony, you can have some alternatives or some type of punishment. But to think that individual witnesses are not going to have any kind of insight as to what's going on in the trial, no, that's not realistic. That's rather naive.
But Luther, a two-part question.
Sure.
So I think early on there was a concern regarding witness sequestration when the circuit court in Wayne County was putting the proceedings up on YouTube. And
Okay.
so, people were thinking, oh, well, they're supposed to be sequestered, but they could be watching everything on, YouTube.
Mhm.
And then the second part of the question is, there's a concern about proceeding with a jury trial or even a bench trial on Zoom if a judge cannot really see the witness, in terms of, their expressions in order to judge the credibility and the reliability of the witness. You just can't do that as well on Zoom as you can in person, and that can prejudice your client, the defendant.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
I've also had that, not just the judge, but I've had that as a defense attorney, where there was an exam and they didn't have the camera set up so I could see the witness. So myself as a defense attorney, I would want to, if we're going to do it on Zoom, have the camera set up so I can see the witness, see their mannerisms, all of that.
Yeah, it was a case that went up to the Michigan Supreme Court just a little while ago that I was involved with, where it was a DNA, it was a criminal sexual assault case, and it was from one of those untested rape kit or assault kits, from maybe 25 years ago, and there was an expert witness that was going to testify to the DNA, the scientific stuff in the case, and that witness, I believe he was in California, and the prosecutor didn't want to bring that person back or thought that doing some type of video interrogation was going to satisfy things. Well, the court rules don't allow for that unless the defendant specifically agrees to it. And there is no such thing as a waiver or anything like that. If the defendant doesn't say, this is okay with me to have this testimony done via video, then the prosecutor must produce that witness. And it was I think there was a discussion back and forth. Well, look, if everyone can see him on the screen, and you're able to ask him all the questions that you wanted to ask him, shouldn't that be something that is just, yeah, it's a technicality, but something that's not really material, and you could just go around it. Well, the Michigan Supreme Court said no, that is a constitutional right for the accused to sit in the courtroom and face the accusers, all the witnesses against him, face to face, unless he says it's okay to do it by Zoom. All right.
And what's
So,
that case name?
pardon?
What is the name of that case?
I don't remember the case. That was one thing I was trying to remember the case, but
Is that People v. Heller?
that
We can
doesn't.
look it up and just we can put it in the subject
Okay.
line later,
Okay.
it's
Good
gonna
idea.
be YouTube and
Yeah.
we can put it in.
And yeah, that was an interesting case because that was a case presided over by the late Dalton Roberson.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's another
And-
thing that's been intense. We've had judges, Judge Roberson, Penny
Judge
Miller,
Millender.
yeah, Humphreys. We've had attorneys that have passed away. It's Isaac Robinson, and we just had Cliff Woodard was an accident, but it's still during COVID, and it's all surreal. It's just
Right.
like, because we're not able to really, go out like we would, like for funerals, and we don't, normally we would. What I did appreciate about Frank Murphy is like we had our attorneys lounge, so you could go there if you're doing a case, and you could talk with other lawyers if you need, if you're, you can mentor other lawyers, you can talk, you can talk to other lawyers about case strategy. I mean, I'll reach out to you. Call Lillian and Gabi about case strategy, whether it's a private or appointed case. And we're just definitely having to adjust to everything with technology, and also getting our clients on board with technology. And I am also, I have this issue about some of the judges just are not always compassionate about clients. I've been seeing situations where the judges, some judges now, they put a disclaimer on there. They tell the clients that they need to dress a certain way, and that they don't need to be asleep or smoking weed or anything. But some of the judges will chastise clients for what they're wearing. Clients may be at work. And again, if they were wealthy, a lot of them wouldn't be getting in trouble in the first place. It's like it's a class issue. It's like we're taking our middle class, upper class standards and putting them onto people that are poor. If they were poor, they could afford a lawyer. I have retained cases. If a person comes in, and even on my appointed, if I can talk to them ahead of time, or even if the courts could give them a notice about dress code, then I could see, okay, talking to them about dress code. But then I've even seen it where a judge went after somebody about a prosecution witness for what they're wearing. And, and then judges are saying, well, we're going to lock you up if you're not dressed properly. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, even when there's not a pandemic, it's just, I just feel like I'm in the twilight zone.
Well, and you're dealing with different personalities. I'm of a position, look, as a professional, as a jurist, you have to place yourself above that pettiness, because that's what it is, in my opinion. That's petty. If someone is upset or offended by the way someone looks or appears in front of the court, have a sidebar with the counsel and say, look, I'm not going to listen to this case with your client looking the way he's looking. You're going to have to get another date, and we'll take it from there. Or you can figure out some way to make sure he's dressed appropriately. But to sit and just go on the record in front of the public with those kind of comments, that is petty, it's unprofessional, and it's unbecoming to the legal profession. No one should be on the record chastising anyone like that in public, on YouTube, in front of everyone. Those are very inappropriate actions by any jurors. And see, that's my opinion. I see it all the time.
Right.
But anytime a judge does that kind of stuff on the record, on YouTube, it's inappropriate.
Right. I think, again, before, when there wasn't a pandemic, we did have a clothing closet. with the Wayne County
Right.
Criminal Defense Bar. So if a person is in trial, we could bring clothing down. A lot of people, it's their first time in court. And what I would say to these judges that are doing that, that they need to start a clothing closet at the court. They need to have a clothing closet. If it's going to be a fashion show, and it's, again, I just feel like it's a class issue. It's a lack of sensitivity to the fact. I understand people are in court, they're accused of crimes, they're innocent till proven guilty. But I just really, again, I've seen it, and I've just gotten to the point where I'm not silent about it. I know we have to appear in front of the judges, so we do have to, obviously we're respectful. I try to dress appropriately myself. I know some of the judges are upset about attorneys, making sure that we're dressed appropriately. But for the public, with some people it's their first time in court, and then to be chastised, to me, it's not.
Hey, Robyn and Luther, it might be a good idea for the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar Association to put together a Zoom video for defendants, for clients, how to handle yourself in court.
Yeah.
But then again, some clients don't have access,
Yeah.
They don't have the technology.
That's a good idea, Tracey. I think that would definitely, that's a good idea.
Well, the challenge, for those kind of things, I really focus on my client's attire and his language at the trial level. Some people like swearing, cussing, and using inappropriate language. I had to tell people that you're in a courtroom when you have regular, I was called like street dialect, where the use of profanity isn't used as talking to insult anyone. It's just the way people talk. And when people, the things that they're saying, I say, well, look, you're going to have to change the dialect here. You're going to have to talk like you would talk in church, and use that time to slow down, pick your words carefully, and just don't get into this rage where you're mad, you're hot, you're out of control, and you slip back into some of the things that you're more comfortable with. And so I always try to tell folks, I'm like, look, this is, people swear, all right? This is the way people talk. And it gives people credibility. It's street credibility when they stop, with the certain street dialect. Well, you lose credibility. You're someone else that I can't relate to. So what they want to do is to make sure that they're talking to someone relating to them, and so that they have street credibility. And that's what it is. I'm like, well, look, when you're in a courtroom, you're in front of the judge, you're in front of a jury. These are not the people that in your neighborhood. These are people that have completely different backgrounds, and the way you might act, the things you might say, you think you're making points, but you're not. You're hurting yourself.
Right. I had a case early on where the client, he was accused of domestic violence and resisting obstructing. And he was like, yeah, it was him and his girlfriend. And it wasn't, he didn't hit her. He had flicked ashes at her. It wasn't like he came out and hit her. And we're going over what he's going to say. And he's like, yeah, I don't hit my bitches. And I'm like, do not say that. And then, he didn't listen to me. And then, and we know the result. Obviously, he didn't get convicted for domestic violence. He got convicted for R&O because he was just very machismo. Yeah, the police were roughing me up and they threw me down the stairs, and I was like, yeah, hit me some more. And I'm like, you're in front of a jury. You are not. This is not your people on the streets.
Well, the worst thing that comes up, and there's something that no attorney can do anything about, is when they start playing the jail calls. Okay. And the language, the subject matter, the dialogue,
You can't object to that. You can't object to that.
Well, no, it's you can object to it, but it's going to come in because a lot of those conversations are very material to the cases going on.
And you can't unring that bell.
Anymore, you can't unring that bell. But I'm just talking about. I'm talking about the
your
language.
Call is subject to recording, and that's why I tell clients, don't talk about your case on the phone. Don't write letters. Don't call witnesses. That's witness tampering. Again, go ahead, Luther.
The thing is, you're trying to portray your client in a certain role. I want him to put him in a very peaceful, calm mode, so that someone have to say, well, that's acting out of character. And so I can't believe this person would do some of the things he's being accused of. But when, like it's a reason why people have a right to remain silent and don't say anything. There's a reason. But when you play a jail tape and the type of language and attitude and response that a person would give is just so bad that it's very hard to remedy. So,
Well, Luther, before we go, because I know that we're running out of time, I do want
Yeah,
to
we got about 2
bring
minutes.
this conversation back around to law and activism. And,
okay.
There's a couple of hot issues. In the media recently, there was an opinion piece that ran in the Detroit News. It was an editorial, and the headline goes, "Racism in the criminal justice system requires our attention." And then there's another article about Tom Gorse, who owns the Detroit Pistons. He recently bought that telecom company that handles the jail calls, Securus, and he's been called out, because phone calls are a major issue, in terms of clients who are confined, awaiting the next proceeding. They don't have the money, they have no money on the books. And these costs are just astronomical from these companies that are handling the jail calls. And so there's a movement afoot. Here's the activism for Tom Gorse to make right on that, and to reduce the cost of the calls. Even with counsel trying to communicate with their clients by phone, it's very difficult.
Well, the high cost, I kind of look at it as the high cost is probably an attempt. It's a feeble attempt to limit the number of calls from an individual. The higher the cost, the fewer people that are going to seek that type of service, as opposed to writing a letter or somebody coming to visit someone personally. But you're in a position here where family, they're put into a corner where they're going to accept a call. And this is where I would have to say, well, look, the family has to put their foot down and say, look, I can't afford these calls. You can call, I'll take a call once every 2 weeks, once a month. I'll come and visit you regularly. But the $20 phone call every day, that's just not reasonable. And this is a person that has to be talk to on the side and say, look, this is not reasonable. You're putting your family in a very tough spot. Unless you're going to pay for these telephone calls, they have to stop.
But from an advocacy standpoint, is this an issue that the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar Association's legislative department might, champion? I don't know if you have that,
Well,
the
the thing is,
legislative, where you would lobby politicians, state representatives, and senators. We need some new legislation where anybody who is awaiting trial has the ability to get some free phone calls with their counsel and with their family, their friends, family.
well, right now you have the Zoom call that you can make and arrange, and those are conducted free of charge for the individual clients, and it doesn't cost anyone anything to go down to the jail and speak to someone face to face. So those kind of costs are really not really material at that kind of level. The lawyer will always have free access to their client and vice versa. So if the lawyer wants to take a call, collect call, well, that's between the client and the lawyer. But generally, when something like that comes up, I'll just make arrangements to go see my client.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. And, is there a nexus between what lawyers do in the courtroom, the advocacy that, we do in the courtroom, and activism outside of the courtroom? Is there a nexus? Is there a place for that? Is it appropriate? What's your opinion?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this is one of the things that I think that with the Criminal Bar Association, like over Christmas time, there was a push to get Christmas baskets out to underprivileged families for the holidays. Well, what my position is that I'm also an active member in my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma. That is a service organization, and Robyn supports me on pretty much all of the functions that I've done. And
Right, and you've been
Go,
supportive
Robyn.
of my programs as well. What to do and stop by the police.
stop by the police. Yes, and so what I say is like, look, just because you're a member of the bar association does not mean that you can't go in the community, find a service organization, and be effective in it. Because we do, like just like Robyn said, we do the what to do when stopped by the police. I'm involved with our Sigma Beta Club. That's a male mentoring program inside of Phi Beta Sigma. And we have young men that we work from age 12 to 17, uh, trying to make sure that they're ready for college and they're acting in a manner that would be appropriate for that type of age, and to make sure they stay on track and not be distracted by some of the things that you see out on the streets. We have also programs that we're working with the businesses on. So with our bigger and better business programs. So to say that you can't be involved with service, that is simply not true. I think that the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar Association, uh, it just focus on criminal defense. And the individuals in the Criminal Defense Bar Association, they all of them have very easy access rather, to service organizations that need their help and their input. And so when I do my summer camp for my Sigma Betas, we bring in a number of people from the community to talk about uh, uh, finance and scholarship programs in order to, and also in order to show them other things around downtown. We have our campus done at Wayne State.
Oh,
And
great.
so we bring a number of professors and professionals in to come and talk to the kids. And we want to put them in an academic environment, where they're actually on a college campus, and you see the college kids walking around and so forth, and it kind of puts a different type of tone on the summer camp. So that
Luther, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are running up on time. If
okay.
somebody wants to participate or donate to your activities with your fraternity, where would they go?
It would go to the Crescent Educational Foundation of Detroit. That is the foundation that funds the programs that we're talking about. That is a educational foundation. That's where the money that we collect for our scholarships and the camp. That's where the means that we collect it from. And last year we were very successful, and Robyn was at our last fundraiser. That was right before COVID really set in. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
Well, I'm
and
going to have to contribute. I have one last question.
sure.
Black Lives Matter is up for a Nobel Peace Prize. Do
Mhm.
you believe that Black Lives Matter has been a catalyst in contributing to this criminal justice reform movement in America?
Well, yeah. The only thing with Black Lives Matter is I would say it should be Black Lives Matter too.
Okay.
Because and
Black
so
Lives
everybody's
Matter too.
Black Lives Matter too. And so I think some of the wording there would help out the movement more. But no, definitely Black Lives Matter is something that is a cornerstone. Like I said, I only quibble with the title.
Right.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Okay. Well, again, thank you,
Thank you.
Attorney Luther Glenn, President of the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar. You've been on Political Coffee. We're
Luther
gonna
Glenn,
look
you've
at
got to come
Well,
back.
I have
Gotta
my
come
tea.
back.
I have my tea.
Yes,
Well,
Luther Glenn, I hope
yeah,
you come back and give us an
no.
update, because when the new Wayne County Criminal Justice Center opens, I understand
Mm,
it's slated to open in late 2022. I don't know if it's still on track, but I see it
mm,
rising. It's
yeah.
all closed in off of I-75 in Detroit.
Mm,
So I hope you can come back, and kudos to you. Congratulations.
okay.
Everything that you do is just exemplary.
Okay.
And I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to give a donation to the
Yeah, and thank
Education
you.
Foundation.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Luther,
Well,
I consider you a mentor, so I thank you for all you do. And again, to be doing the heavy duty cases, I'm still doing them. I'm doing them retained murder rape, but I mean to be doing them,
well,
appointed, it's intense. I mean, it's I
yeah.
still do appointed non-capital, but it's an intense. I mean, it's like you got a much kudos to you and the rest of the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar attorneys that are doing it, because it's not an easy job. Again, we get treated like second-class citizens. So okay.
Well, Robyn, you know that I accept all of your phone calls. I will come to your aid at a whim. So anytime if you want to invite me back, I will definitely be here. And
Okay.
I enjoyed the invitation today. Thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, and be safe.
you.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Yes, stay safe. Keep
right.
fighting.
All right.
Well, that was great. So Monica Ross Williams, is she coming in, or are we
I think
gonna close out?
we're gonna need to come out. It's gonna be
Okay.
we're gonna need to come out because I haven't seen her. She looks like she's on the other one. So we're gonna end it. And
Okay.
come in. Okay.
Okay, so I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Yes, see you all in a couple of
Okay, great. Like and subscribe, everybody. Political Coffee. We'll be back.